Calaroga Shark Media.
So I'm prepping the show and I see a headline, comedy superstar known for going topless, and I'm like, hey, I better click on this story and check it out. It was about Bert Kreischer. Not what I was looking for at all. Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. If you missed Sunday, it was a very robust episode. You want to go back and hear Theo Von stuff, if nothing else. Saturday Night Live. I don't know, man. Started okay and then fell off a cliff. No teeth at all. Not sure SNL met the moment. Opened with a decent sketch. Colin Jost getting some run. He got to play Pete Hegseth and did a nice job in character before getting interrupted by James Austin Johnson's increasingly drifting Donald Trump impression. The Trump character then got meta, saying SNL 51 off to a rough start, 17 new cast members, and I got the update guy doing the open, which I thought was a good observation. I was thinking the same thing myself, that Jost got the open. Johnson, as Trump said, I thought Jost would be with his friends at the Riyadh Comedy Festival. Jost saying he didn't get an offer. Then on to the credits, and I'm watching the credits, and the credits are high energy, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is a pretty strong cast, because all the major players returned, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And then Bad Bunny came out, and his monologue killed it. There's obviously the language challenge there, but also his timing. So, that takes the air out of the balloon. First sketch, a Jeopardy sketch that just never flew. Other notes I wrote down, Marcelo Hernandez in a sketch about ChatGPT-O, so like a Hispanic version of ChatGPT. Marcelo Hernandez, he does one thing, he does it really well, but it's the only thing he does, and he did it 3 different sketches on Saturday. Come on, man. There was a K-pop, Demon Hunter sketch that spotlighted why Bowen Yang and Sarah Sherman are special performers. I wrote down Doja Cat lip-syncing. Like, what are we doing? The show's called Saturday Night Live, not Saturday Night Lip Sync. Kind of lame. Cam Patterson was on Update. He's got tons of charisma, but he can't perform. He was obviously reading the teleprompter, and he's not good at that. And he's not good at delivering a material in that form. Want a really, really, really unfair early prediction? Cam Patterson, one and done. Write that one down. We'll check back in May. Taylor Swift did not appear on a pretty weak Saturday Night Live. Speaking of Taylor Swift, she's the guest on The Tonight Show, starring Jimmy Fallon tonight. Late night wars heating back up. Fallon has been catching a lot of grief. He had done an interview recently with Newsweek talking about how he's not going to make the show political. Jimmy said, our show's never really been that political, We hit both sides equally, and we try to make everybody laugh, and that's really the way our show works. Our monologues are kind of the same we've been doing since Johnny Carson was doing The Tonight Show, so really, I just keep my head down and make sure the jokes are funny. I have great writers, clever, smart writers, and we're just trying to make the best show we possibly can and entertain everybody. People got very upset at this. I'll continue to defend Jimmy Fallon that he understands what The Tonight Show is and he executes the mission. I think he's got more in his tool belt than he does as host of The Tonight Show, but I think he understands what hosting The Tonight Show is. On social media, Film Bart said, look, I've enjoyed taking pot shots at Fallon from the cheap seats, but his utter failure to meet this cultural moment comedically is pretty staggering. His public persona is a complete and total void. Chilling. I wonder what Film Bart thought of SNL. Mr. B. Direct said, Fallon is an empty vessel, puppeteered by the industry and megacorps. Always has been, but it's never been more obvious. Hilariously, he will get taken out by the Trump administration as quickly as the rest of late night. At the Riyadh Comedy Festival tonight, Jimmy Carr and Louis C.K. If you missed Sunday's episode, I recapped C.K. with Bill Burr. I also listened to C.K. on Theo Von's podcast. I couldn't make it all the way to the end. They got into a conversation about their sexual addictions, and I just punched out on it. Matt Bronger on his Substack writes, I'll start by saying I wasn't invited, and also thank God for that. If I was offered half of what the comics who went were offered, boy, it'd be tough to say no. But I think I would have. I'm not here to jump on my fellow comics. My brothers and sisters who stand alone on the stage and talk about their genitals for laughs. However, I will say, what the F are you doing? We can talk about the expanding relationships between our country and theirs and how their people deserve to be entertained. But at the end of the day, you got to face the fact that A, they have slaves, 3 exclamation points. B, the guy who ministered the entertainment has an entire wing of a prison where they torture people who have spoken out or tweeted about the kingdom's oppressions named after him. C, they allegedly funded/did 9/11. D, they killed journalists. Matt Observes Comics, play Russia next. And E, hey, Kevin Hart, the Kevin Hart of Saudi Arabia's wife was taken and disappeared for driving a car. Matt Bronger then got into some other reactions from some other folks, but I'll skip ahead to his reaction to Bill Burr's take. Matt writes, this one stung because, yeesh, dude, you're the guy. Maybe the closest big performer we have to a modern George Carlin, the zigger in a field of zaggers. Remember when Louis C.K. was the new George Carlin? Nobody says that anymore. That was the thing that was said. Matt wraps up with, I'm still a fan of all these guys and most of the comics who played the festival, but to me, the check wasn't worth the handshake it implies. Thanks for reading. For Pajiba, Dustin Rolls writes, that defense is not going to fly, Bill Burr. Dustin says, here's the problem with Burr's defense. The problem was never the Saudi people. The problem with the Iranian regime is not the Iranian people. The problem with the Netanyahu government is not the Israelis. And the problem with America is not the people who didn't vote for this authoritarian regime. The problem is the Saudi government, and it's the Saudi government that backed a truck full of money to Burr's house. Burr might argue that he was simply bringing comedy to people who deserve to laugh, and on the surface, that sounds noble, but that's not what's happening here. Bill Burr is giving the Saudi government exactly what it wanted, a positive portrait of Saudi Arabia. Yes, the Saudi people are no different than the rest of us. They eat at Chili's too. But Saudi journalists are getting killed by their government, which, as David Cross noted, has slaves. The Saudi people are victims of the very government that paid Burr to go home and tell the rest of the world that Saudi Arabia is a great place with great people and that performing for the Saudi royals was one of the 3 best experiences of his life. So no, Burr, that's not going to fly. And somehow I've lost even more respect for him because he apparently doesn't even realize he's become a tool for the Saudi royal family. Gabe Iglesias performed on Thursday night at the Riyadh Comedy Festival. He shared a video of himself signing a poster showing the stacked lineup. He captured it. Thank you to everyone who came out to my event last night in Riyadh. I will be posting more highlight videos and pictures soon. Unity through laughter. The New York Times wrote the festival has been held at Boulevard City, a sprawling entertainment complex with a quarter designed to resemble Times Square. Young Saudis gathered in gender-mixed spaces beneath the glare of giant screens rather than the watchful gaze of the once-feared religious police whose powers were stripped down by the Crown Prince as part of his reform drive. Still, societal transformation has its limits. Political humor was warmly received. The sex jokes, not so much. Cypher Sounds started a gag about men airdropping photos of their genitals. Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the arena. Cypher Sound said, oh, sex jokes don't land in Riyadh. Got it. In The Nation, Ben Schwartz writes, the list of massive ironic cell phones these comics just racked up in Riyadh is impressive. Burr himself once went off on Beyonce as a woman who embraces feminism, yet flew to Libya to perform for Muammar al-Gaddafi. Chappelle has criticized Israel and Gaza, but just took money from a country that backed a civil war in Yemen that caused the famine deaths of at least 85,000 children and killed hundreds of thousands more Yemeni civilians. In 2014, Hannibal Buress went after Bill Cosby and said out loud what many knew but were afraid to say about Bill Cosby. Journalism was limited what it could say about Cosby because it has rules. Law enforcement was limited in what it could do because it has rules. Comedians don't. And Buress's takedown kickstarted Cosby's ultimate downfall. The Riyadh Court Jester Parade won't mean much to the careers of most of these comics. No one's going to lose a Hollywood deal for a movie or a show. And with Saudi money in Hollywood, some might come home to new deals. All this is distracting us from the big story of the week, which is Jim Gaffigan bending the knee to the bourbon industry. Jim Gaffigan has sold out to Big Bourbon. Jim Gaffigan will do a live podcast recording at Pursuit Spirits on Whiskey Row. We're told it's a special live podcast experience at the brand new Bourbon Pursuit podcast studio and tasting room, and he's doing that today at 12:30 in the afternoon. The Golden Globes, which will be hosted by Nikki Glazer, has announced the 25 podcasts eligible for Golden Globes. Now, quite notably here, stunningly to me here, I can't explain this at all, not on the list of 25, which I'll read, not on the list, Conan O'Brien. How is that possible? James Cridlin, who writes Pod News, pointed out that the 25 podcasts is pretty close to the top 25 podcasts on the charts. Nominated are 48 Hours, Dak Shepard, Call Her Daddy, Candace Owens, Crime Junkie, Dateline, Amy Poehler, Morbid, Mr. Ballin, Pardon My Take, Pod Save America, Rotten Mango, Sean Ryan, Smartless, Stuff You Should Know, Ben Shapiro, Bill Simmons, The Daily, Rogan, Megyn Kelly, Mel Robbins, Tucker Carlson, Theo Vaughn, NPR. Now, the Golden Globes is a showbiz show. I'm stunned that Conan's not on this list and just going to win, because don't you want to put on a show? Like, you're going to go, ladies and gentlemen, here's Crime Junkie. Yay. I mean, it's popular, but that's not showbiz. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner, best podcast, goes to Stuff You Should Know. Again, perfectly fine podcast, but yay. Here's the guys from The Daily. Yay. I mean, they're not going to give it a Rogan. If you give it to somebody like Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson, you're making a statement. I don't know who's going to get it here. Do you just give it to I guess you just give it to Amy Poehler, right? You just give it. Amy comes out, she smiles, everybody's happy. She's industry. She's Golden Globes friendly because she's hosted the thing. So yeah, just give it Amy Poehler and we're done. If I wrote my notes down correctly, there's a podcast called The Idiot Box with Allison Lips. The topic, Jay Leno and the late night stuff, and I'm the guest. I believe that is out today, so if you want to hear me talk even more, I'm the guest. We recorded that before Kimmelgate, if I recall, so some of it might be not quite timely, but it was a really good conversation for about an hour. Jon Stewart was asked on The Weekly Show why Trump hasn't tried to cancel him the way Trump has tried to cancel Colbert, Kimmel, Seth, and Fallon. Jon Stewart said, "There's no question. It's a function of relevance. I don't think we're on the radar." You know, I think he's right. It's a cable show, and I don't think the president watches that sort of TV other than Fox. He's a network guy. He's old school. He's from the 20th century, like me. Makes sense. Beth Stelling spoke to Girl Talk HQ about her special, The Landlord Special, which you'll find on Veeps. Beth said, "I usually know I'm onto something stand-up wise when my mom says she wants to hear more. For this special, I was dealing with a very noisy, combustible landlady who seemed hellbound in getting me to move so she could raise the rent. But for years, I was more stubborn than I was exasperated. I'd call my mom immediately after many of the interactions. On those calls, my mom was typically shocked and trying to advise me as best she could from afar, but at times it took a toll on my mental health to feel trapped in a place, especially during the pandemonium. I felt unwelcome and under surveillance. This story-heavy special was born from severe frustration, but turning that into stand-up comedy for laughs is historically how I process and work through any bad, powerless, painful, or uncomfortable things I've experienced." Inspirations? Beth says, "A renowned New York Times critic once referred to my voices as Bamfordian, a reference to Maria Bamford, who's one of the great stand-ups of our time. I think any comic that is sharing themselves in a true and honest way is inspiring to me. I prefer to watch well-written jokes and stories rooted in authenticity. I have an aversion to what I call word math. I also categorize comics as not helping when they strive to shock audience members in the pursuit of challenge. I believe they're hacky and often lack life experience and empathy." And that is your comedy news for today. We're off to an interesting start this week. Gaffigan's got some bourbon stuff coming up. I got a bunch of stories I haven't been able to get to. These episodes have been quite robust, and we'll see what kind of strife this week brings. Appreciate you listening. Still a lot of new listeners hanging around who discovered the show during Kimmelgate and Riyadh, so appreciate you. Back here in the morning. See you then.